Hello, Patreon. Thank you for being here for this month's update. As you know, I have been writing a lot, which means I've written a lot. Part of that does mean going back and constantly referring to what I've previously written in a very granular way, sort of checking the last piece of information I gave on a certain topic in order to make sure the information I'm giving on that topic now makes sense. Because of the marathon nature of this thing, I've been so intent on continuing to write and push this whole thing forward. At no point had I gone back to the beginning and looked at what I've written as one thing, tried to experience it the way the reader or listener will. And for most of this past month, that was what I was doing. Head down, continue to write. And it was going really well. I had no complaints about it. Then a few days ago, I had a reason to go back to the beginning and skim over everything I've done so far, sort of mentally fast forward through how it all is going to play out. And I learned a couple things doing that. The first thing is I have already written a novel-sized manuscript, which is pretty cool. And the second thing is I have more of the story done than I thought I did. There is still a lot left to write, so I'm trying to not get too excited about it or anything, but it does feel good to know I've already done several things that I thought I was going to have to do still. Basically, what happened when I went back and looked at the whole thing together is looking at all the different threads running through the whole thing. I noticed that I was much more close to finishing one of them than I realized. And what that means is I now know how that complete thread looks, running from beginning to end. And what that means is I have one constant point of reference for everything else in the season. So everything else falls into place around that. Since I'm always comparing this to putting together a puzzle, this is like getting the outside pieces put together. Whenever I'm talking about moving pieces of a story around to make sure they're in the right place, it's easier to do that when you have the outside put together. And from there, the more you have done of a puzzle, the easier it gets to finish. All these big sections I have put together without really knowing where they're going to go, now I can see where they're going to go. The most specific example I could give for this would be the Dallas Frazier episode in season 2, the subject matter of which was left up to polls here on Patreon. So that was always going to be this piece I had to leave floating around until I had enough of everything else put together that its place became apparent. And now I know where that goes. So right now I'm sort of going back and filling in holes around all these big sections, or going back to the thread analogy, making sure everything is even length before I continue forward. And I feel really good about where I'm at. So again, thank you for helping me do this. Please take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next month.